Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Great. Today we're tackling a creature that might seem pretty familiar, the hamster.
Yep.
But trust me, there's a lot more to these little guys than meets the eye.
Yeah.
We've got a ton of research and observations to dig into, and
Yeah.
I think you'll be surprised by just how many fascinating adaptations these hamsters have developed.
Oh, yeah. What people often forget is the sheer variety we're dealing with, When someone says hamster, most folks just picture the classic, the golden hamster, the Syrian hamster.
Right, yeah.
But the truth is, there are actually something like 24 recognized species of hamsters out there, and each one has its own unique story to tell when it comes to survival.
Okay, so before we dive into all the amazing specifics, let's set the stage a bit. When we talk about hamsters, what are we really talking about? What are their defining characteristics? And just to be clear, how do they differ from, say, a mouse or a guinea pig?
Well, I'd say the first thing is, think compact, stocky rodents with short tails. That right there sets them apart from your average mouse for sure. And in terms of where they hang out, primarily you're going to find them in dry, arid regions. Think parts of Asia, some areas of Europe. And it's interesting, their name actually gives you a clue about one of their most important behaviors.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it comes from the German word hamstern, and it basically means to hoard.
To hoard. So they're like the ultimate preppers of the rodent world.
Exactly.
I mean, it makes sense, though, right? If you're living in an environment where resources are scarce, hoarding becomes a pretty vital survival strategy.
Oh, absolutely. And we're not talking about your grandma's kind of hoarding here. These guys are champions.
Really?
There have been cases where wild hamsters have been found with stashes of food weighing up to tens of kilograms.
Tens of kilograms? That's insane.
Yeah, picture a human holding enough food to fill a small car.
Okay, that's a pretty vivid image.
It's mind-boggling.
But hold on. How on earth do they manage to carry that much? I mean, sure, I've seen those cute videos of hamsters stuffing their cheeks, but there's got to be more to it than that, right? They're tiny.
Yeah, you're right. Those cheek pouches are key. Think of them like built-in, super expandable grocery bags right there in their cheeks.
Wow.
And it's this adaptation that lets them gather and transport huge amounts of food back to their burrows, which is crucial in an environment where you never know when you'll find your next meal.
So it's like their own personal portable pantry.
Exactly.
But still, to hold that much, those pouches must have some pretty crazy mechanics going on.
Oh, absolutely. They don't just passively stuff food in there. They have actual techniques, using their paws to pack everything in tight, making sure they can carry as much as possible. And then when it's time to unload, they use their paws to push the food back out.
Wow, so it's like a whole coordinated system.
Totally. All about maximizing their foraging efficiency.
It's amazing how something that seems so simple, like a cheek pouch, can actually be so crucial for an animal's survival.
Yeah, and it's even more remarkable when you think about the fact that hamsters come in all sorts of sizes.
Oh, yeah.
You've got your tiny dwarf hamsters, which can fit right in the palm of your hand.
Adorable.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have the European hamster, which can grow almost as big as a guinea pig.
Wow, so size really does matter in the hamster world.
Oh, yeah.
And I imagine it plays a big role in how different hamster species have adapted to their specific environments.
You got it. It influences everything. Their diet, their burrowing habits, how they avoid predators. It's all connected. Like, take the European hamster. Even though they look super cute, they're not usually kept as pets. Partly because of their specific needs in captivity, and partly because of conservation concern.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Eh.
And speaking of popular pet hamsters, what about the Syrian hamster, the golden one? I mean, they're a global pet sensation now. Well, how did that even happen? They started out in a pretty specific region, right?
Yeah, the story of how the Syrian hamster went from a small area in Syria and Turkey to pet shops all over the world is pretty wild.
So how did it all begin?
Well, back in the 1930s, scientists were trying to find an animal model to study this deadly disease called leishmaniasis.
Leishmaniasis, okay.
And the zoologist named Israel Aharoni thought, maybe, just maybe, the Syrian hamster could be the key.
Interesting.
So he brought a mother hamster and her 11 pups back to his lab in Jerusalem. But tragically, only 4 of the pups survived the journey.
Wow. Talk about a small starting population.
I know, right? And those 4 hamsters, they became the ancestors of every single golden hamster in captivity today.
So every golden hamster we see all over the world can trace its lineage back to those 4 individuals.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
Their descendants turned out to be super valuable for medical research, but some of them did eventually make their way into the pet trade.
So it's a story that really connects science and pet ownership in a fascinating way.
It is, and it really shows you why it's so important to study and conserve even those domesticated populations, especially since wild Syrian hamster numbers are unfortunately dwindling.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've talked about hoarding, those incredible cheek pouches. But what other adaptations have helped hamsters thrive in their environments? I'm especially curious about their senses, because they're mainly active at night.
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Now, hamsters don't have the best eyesight, but to make up for that, they've evolved to rely on other senses to navigate their world, like their whiskers. Those things are incredibly sensitive, allowing them to feel their way around in the dark, detect obstacles, really explore their surroundings even when they can't see well.
Makes sense.
And then there's their sense of smell. It's phenomenal. Ever noticed your hamster rubbing its belly on the ground as it moves around?
Oh, yeah. I always wondered about that.
Well, it's all about scent marking.
Scent marking.
Hamsters have scent glands on their bellies, and by dragging their bellies along, they leave a scent trail. It helps them navigate, find their way back to their burrows, and even communicate with other hamsters.
So they're creating their own invisible map of their territory using scent.
Precisely. And get this. Some research suggests that some hamster species might even use echolocation.
Echolocation. Like bats.
Yeah, sort of. They emit high-frequency sounds that bounce back from objects, giving them extra information about their environment.
Wow. Echolocation in hamsters.
Isn't that wild?
That's incredible. So they've really developed this whole suite of sensory adaptations
Oh, yeah.
to compensate for their limited vision and thrive in those low-light conditions.
Exactly. And speaking of thriving, we can't forget about their remarkable breeding abilities, especially those golden hamsters. Remember how we mentioned Australia having all those strict regulations about them?
Yeah, that definitely piqued my curiosity.
Yeah.
Why such stringent rules for a species that's actually endangered in its native habitat?
Well, it all comes down to their, let's say, enthusiasm for multiplying.
Enthusiasm for multiplying.
Yeah, you see, golden hamsters are incredibly efficient at it.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Their gestation period is incredibly short, only about 16 to 17 days, which is less than half the time it takes rabbits to give birth.
Wow, that's fast. So they could have multiple litters in the time it takes a rabbit to have one.
Exactly. And it's not just the speed, their litter sizes are also impressive. A typical golden hamster litter can have anywhere from 8 to 10 pups, sometimes even reaching 20 or more. Compare that to rabbits, which usually have 6 to 8 offspring per litter.
So shorter gestation, larger litters. It's like a recipe for a population explosion. But what about the time it takes for them to reach sexual maturity?
That's where things get really interesting. While rabbits take around 4 months to become sexually mature, golden hamsters are ready to start breeding at just over a month old.
A month old. So a baby hamster born today could be having its own babies in just a few weeks.
That's right.
That's both fascinating and a little alarming, considering how many offspring they can produce. No wonder Australia is being so cautious. They've learned their lesson with invasive species the hard way.
Oh, absolutely. And while golden hamsters might seem cute and cuddly, their potential to mess up ecosystems is a real concern. You combine their rapid breeding cycles with their ability to adapt to different climates, and the fact that they don't have many natural predators in some areas, and it's a recipe for potential ecological trouble.
So those regulations are all about preventing another rabbit situation. Better to be safe than sorry, especially when dealing with a species that can multiply like that. Now, we've talked about their incredible breeding abilities, but what about their parenting skills? Are they doting parents, or is there more to the story?
Well, let's just say hamster parenting is a bit more complex than you might think.
Complex how?
Well, mother hamsters do care for their young for the first few weeks, but their maternal instincts are maybe not what we typically picture.
What do you mean?
Well, for starters, hamsters are solitary creatures, fiercely territorial. And outside of mating, they generally prefer to be alone.
So even the parents don't stick around together?
Not usually. They meet up briefly for mating, and then it's back to their separate territories. And once those babies are weaned, and considered adults by the mother, usually around 3 to 4 weeks old, their relationship undergoes a pretty drastic change.
Drastic how?
The mother's tolerance for her offspring takes a nosedive.
Really?
Yeah, she might start seeing them as competition for resources, or even as threats to her territory.
So she basically kicks them out.
Yeah, she'll chase them away. And in some cases, she might even attack or kill them.
Wow, that's harsh. Are there any evolutionary benefits to this kind of parenting strategy?
Well, remember, in their natural environment, resources can be limited. and competition is fierce. This behavior probably evolved as a way to ensure that the strongest offspring survive, while also preventing the mother from using up all her resources on young that can already fend for themselves.
So it's kind of a tough love approach to parenting in the hamster world.
I guess you could say that. And there are other things that can trigger aggression or even cannibalism in mother hamsters.
Like,
If they feel stressed or threatened, or if their pups have been handled by humans and carry our scent, it can really disrupt their maternal behavior.
so even small changes to their environment can have a big impact on their parenting.
Exactly. It shows just how sensitive they are to their surroundings and how important it is to understand their natural behaviors.
Okay, so we've covered hoarding, cheek pouches, scent trails, even echolocation,
Yeah.
and the complexities of hamster parenting. It's clear these little guys are packed with fascinating adaptations, but we can't forget about the role they've played in advancing our understanding of human health and disease.
Absolutely. Those 4 Syrian hamsters that started it all, their legacy goes way beyond the pet trade. Golden hamsters have become incredibly important models for studying all sorts of human diseases.
Wow, really? Tell me more about that. What kind of research has been done with hamsters, and how has it benefited human health?
Well, one of the main reasons golden hamsters are so valuable for research is that they share some striking similarities with humans in terms of physiology and their susceptibility to certain diseases. For example, just like humans, they're susceptible to high cholesterol and the development of related conditions like gallstones.
So by studying hamsters, scientists can gain insights into how cholesterol affects human health and potentially develop new treatments for cholesterol-related diseases.
Exactly. And it's not just cholesterol. Hamsters have also been vital in research on diabetes, atherosclerosis, even cancer.
And cancer, too.
Yep. There's some fascinating research using hamsters to study the effects of smoking on lung health, including in pregnant individuals.
I had no idea hamsters were such versatile research subjects. It's amazing how these tiny creatures can teach us so much about ourselves.
Isn't it? And the contributions continue to be crucial in the ongoing search for new treatments and cures for human diseases.
It's really remarkable how much we can learn from these little creatures. They're like tiny windows into complex biological processes that we share.
That's a great way to put it. And their story highlights the interconnectedness of all living things and the importance of understanding even the smallest and often overlooked species.
Speaking of overlooked, I came across a study about hamsters and exercise that really caught my attention. It suggested that working out more might actually make you hungrier.
Ah, yes, the 2017 study. Quite intriguing findings.
Okay, break it down for me. What did they discover?
So they had some hamsters running on wheels while others were more sedentary. And they found that the hamsters who exercised more actually ate more. And, get this, they actually gained weight.
So working out can actually make you gain weight.
Well, it's not quite as simple as that. The key takeaway was that exercise can trigger hormonal changes that increase appetite, at least in hamsters. And if those cravings aren't managed, you could end up eating more calories than you burn through exercise.
So it's not just about how much you exercise, but also about managing your calorie intake accordingly.
Exactly. But here's the really exciting part. The researchers went a step further, and they were able to block the hormones that were causing the increased appetite in the hamsters.
Really?
And guess what? The hamsters who exercised more no longer overate or gained weight.
So there might be a way to prevent that exercise-induced hunger. That's a game changer.
That's the hope. It's still early research, but it opens up some really cool possibilities for developing new weight management strategies for humans, potentially by targeting those specific hormones.
It's incredible how studying hamsters, these little creatures we often think of as simple pets, can lead to such groundbreaking insights for human health.
Absolutely. It really speaks to how much we can learn from the animal kingdom, and it brings us to an important point about being a responsible hamster owner.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Understanding their natural behaviors and adaptations is crucial for providing them with proper care in captivity.
For sure. So what are some key takeaways for people thinking about getting a hamster?
One of the biggest misconceptions is about cage size. People assume that a small animal needs a small space. But remember, hamsters aren't domesticated in the same way as cats or dogs.
Right, they still have a lot of those wild instincts.
Exactly. They still have that need to burrow, to explore, and of course, to run.
So those tiny cages you often see in pet stores are not ideal.
Not at all. Most experts recommend a cage size of at least 4,000 to 5,000 square centimeters. That's about the size of a 1 meter by 0.5 meter enclosure.
Wow, that's way bigger than I thought. And what about those hamster wheels? They seem pretty popular.
They can be good for exercise. But size matters here too. If the wheel is too small, it forces the hamster to arch its back in an unnatural way, which can cause back problems. Aim for a wheel with a diameter of at least 30 centimeters.
Great advice. It seems like the recurring theme here is that we need to think bigger when it comes to hamster care.
You got it. Responsible ownership means really understanding their needs and providing them with an environment where they can express their natural behaviors.
Well said. From their remarkable adaptations in the wild to their contributions to scientific research, hamsters are a true testament to the wonders of nature. They're more than just cute furry faces. They're a reminder that there's always something new to learn and appreciate about the diversity of life on our planet.
Couldn't agree more. And there's a whole universe of fascinating creatures out there, each with its own story to tell.
So true. And who knows what incredible secrets they hold. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of hamsters. Until next time, keep exploring.
And it's not just those physical adaptations. Their behavior also plays a huge role in their survival.
Oh, for sure. Like how?
Well, for example, you've probably seen those adorable videos of hamsters stuffing their cheeks with food.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's like their cheeks can expand infinitely.
Right. It's amazing. And that behavior, that's not just about being cute. That's a crucial adaptation for survival in their natural environment.
Makes sense. They need to be able to gather as much food as possible,
Yeah.
especially when resources are unpredictable.
Exactly. They live in dry, arid regions where food can be scarce, so they've evolved to take advantage of any opportunity to stock up.
So those cheek pouches are like their secret weapon for survival.
You could say that. It's like
Yeah.
they have these built-in shopping bags
Yeah.
that allow them to carry way more than you'd expect.
And they're surprisingly organized about it, too. I've seen them using their paws to pack everything in nice and tight, like they're playing a real-life game of Tetris in their mouths.
It's pretty impressive. And then when they get back to their burrow, they use those same paws to push all the food back out.
So it's a perfectly evolved system for maximizing their food storage.
Exactly. And it's a perfect example of how form and function are intertwined in the animal kingdom.
It's amazing how much we can learn from observing these seemingly simple behaviors.
Right. And it makes you wonder, what other secrets are these little creatures hiding?
Okay, so we've talked about their hoarding habits, but what about other aspects of their behavior? Like, are they social animals?
Not really. Hamsters are generally solitary creatures.
So they prefer to live alone, even during mating season.
Well, they do come together to mate, obviously. But even then, the interactions are brief.
Really?
Yeah, once the deed is done, it's back to their separate territories.
Interesting. So no big hamster families hanging out together.
Not usually, and in fact, once the babies are weaned, things can get a little tense between the mother and her offspring.
Oh, why is that?
Well, once the young hamsters are considered adults by their mother, usually around 3 to 4 weeks old, her tolerance for them drops significantly.
What happens?
She might start seeing them as competition for resources or even threats to her territory.
Wow, that's kind of harsh.
It is from our perspective, but it's all about survival in the wild.
So she's basically kicking her own kids out of the house.
Essentially, yeah. She'll chase them away, and in some cases, she might even attack or kill them.
Wow, that's intense.
It sounds brutal, but remember, resources can be scarce in their natural environment, and this behavior likely evolved as a way to ensure that the strongest offspring survive.
So it's like a survival of the fittest situation, even within the family.
Exactly, and it's important to remember that hamsters aren't domesticated in the same way as, say, dogs or cats.
Yeah, they still retain a lot of those wild instincts.
Precisely. So, while we might find this behavior shocking, it's perfectly natural for them, and it's one of the things that makes them so fascinating to study.
Absolutely. So we've covered their hoarding habits, their solitary nature, and their unique parenting style. What else can you tell us about their behavior?
Well, one thing that's really cool is their ability to adapt to different environments.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more about that.
Hamsters are incredibly adaptable creatures. They can survive in a wide range of habitats, from deserts to grasslands to forests, and they've developed some amazing strategies for coping with different climates and food sources.
So they're like the ultimate survivors of the rodent world.
I'd say so, and their adaptability is one of the reasons why they've been so successful. As a species, they're able to thrive in places where other animals might struggle.
That's impressive. And it makes me wonder, what role does their behavior play in this adaptability?
Well, one key factor is their burrowing behavior.
Right. They're famous for their elaborate burrows.
Exactly. These burrows provide them with shelter from predators, protection from extreme temperatures, and a safe place to store their food.
So it's like their own little underground fortress.
You could say that. And the complexity of these burrows varies depending on the species and the environment they live in.
So different hamsters, different burrows.
Precisely. Some species dig simple burrows with a single entrance and chamber, while others create elaborate tunnel systems with multiple entrances, chambers, and even separate areas for nesting and storing food.
Wow, that's incredible. It sounds like they're expert architects as well as hoarders.
They are. And their burrowing behavior is a crucial part of what allows them to survive in such diverse environments.
It's amazing how these little creatures have managed to carve out a niche for themselves in so many different parts of the world.
It is, and it just goes to show that even the smallest animals can have a big impact on their ecosystems.
Okay, we've talked about their hoarding, their social behavior, their burrowing habits, but what about their senses? How do they navigate their world?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, hamsters aren't known for their great eyesight.
Right, they're primarily nocturnal, so they don't rely on vision as much.
Exactly. But to compensate for their limited vision, they've developed other senses to an extraordinary degree.
Like what?
Their sense of smell, for example, is incredible.
Really? How so?
Well, they use scent to find food, to identify mates, and to navigate their surroundings. And they've even developed a unique way to leave scent trails.
What do you mean?
Have you ever noticed your hamster rubbing its belly on the ground as it walks around?
Oh, yeah. I always wondered what that was about.
It's all about scent marking. Hamsters have scent glands on their bellies, and by dragging their bellies along, they leave a trail of scent that they can follow.
So it's like they're creating their own invisible map.
Exactly. It's a brilliant way to navigate, especially in the dark.
That's so cool. And it makes me wonder, what about their hearing?
Their hearing is also very good, which is important for detecting predators and other dangers.
Makes sense. But I heard that some hamsters might even use echolocation. Is that true?
There's some evidence to suggest that, yes.
Wow. Echolocation in hamsters, that's mind-blowing.
It is. Some studies have shown that certain hamster species emit high-frequency sounds that bounce back from objects, giving them information about their surroundings.
So they're basically using sound to see in the dark.
In a way, yes. It's a remarkable adaptation that allows them to navigate complex environments, even in the absence of light.
It's incredible how much these little creatures have evolved to survive and thrive in their world.
I know, right? And it makes you realize just how much we still have to learn about the amazing diversity of life on our planet.
So we've covered so much ground already. Their hoarding habits, their social dynamics, their burrowing skills, even their incredible sensory adaptations. It's clear hamsters are masters of survival. But there's one more aspect we haven't touched on yet: their impact on scientific research.
Oh, absolutely. Hamsters have played a huge role in advancing our understanding of human health and disease.
I'm really curious about that. What makes them so valuable for scientific research?
Well, one key reason is that they share a surprising number of physiological similarities with humans.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for instance, like us. They're susceptible to high cholesterol and can develop related conditions like gallstones.
So by studying hamsters, researchers can learn more about how cholesterol impacts human health and potentially even develop new treatments for cholesterol-related diseases.
Exactly, and it goes beyond cholesterol. They've also been incredibly useful in research on diabetes, atherosclerosis, and even cancer.
Wow, cancer too.
Yep, there's actually a whole body of research using hamsters to study the effects of smoking on lung health, including in pregnant individuals.
I had no idea hamsters were such versatile research subjects. It's amazing how these tiny creatures can help us understand such complex human health issues.
It really is. And their contributions continue to be vital in the ongoing search for new treatments and cures for human diseases.
It's a testament to how much we can learn from the animal kingdom.
Okay.
And speaking of learning, I have to bring up this study I read about regarding hamsters and exercise. It suggested that working out more might actually make you hungrier.
Oh yeah, that was a fascinating study from 2017. It looked at the relationship between exercise and appetite in hamsters, and the results were quite surprising.
So tell me, what do they find?
They had some hamsters running on wheels, getting their exercise in, while others remained sedentary. And what they discovered was the hamsters who exercised more actually ended up eating more. And believe it or not, they actually gained weight.
Wait, So working out can actually make you gain weight.
Well, it's a bit more nuanced than that. The key takeaway was that exercise can trigger hormonal changes that lead to an increase in appetite, at least in hamsters. So, if you're not careful about managing your calorie intake, it's possible to end up eating more than you burn through exercise and ultimately gain weight.
So it's not just about how much you exercise, but also about making sure you adjust your calorie intake accordingly.
Precisely. But here's where things get really interesting. The researchers were able to take it a step further, and they actually blocked the hormones responsible for that increased appetite in the hamsters.
They blocked the hormone.
And you know what happened? The hamsters who exercised no longer overate, and they didn't gain weight.
Wow, so there might be a way to actually prevent exercise-induced hunger.
That's the hope. It's still early research, of course, but it opens up some exciting possibilities for developing new weight management strategies in humans, potentially by targeting those specific hormones.
It's incredible how studying hamsters, these little creatures we often think of as just pets, can lead to such groundbreaking insights for human health.
I know, right? And it brings us to an important point about responsible hamster ownership. Understanding their natural behaviors and needs is crucial for providing them with proper care in captivity.
Absolutely. So what are some key things people should keep in mind if they're thinking about getting a hamster?
Well, one of the biggest misconceptions is about cage size. People often assume that a small animal needs a small space, but that's not the case with hamsters.
Right, they're not fully domesticated like cats or dogs.
Yeah.
So they still have a lot of those wild instincts.
Exactly. They need space to burrow, to explore, to run around, to basically be hamsters. So those tiny cages you sometimes see in pet stores, those are definitely not ideal.
Okay, so how big of a cage should people aim for?
Most experts recommend a minimum of 4,000 to 5,000 square centimeters. That's roughly the size of a 1 meter by 0.5 meter enclosure.
Wow, that's significantly larger than I would have thought. And what about those hamster wheels? Everyone seems to have those.
Hamster wheels can be great for exercise, but it's crucial to choose the right size. If the wheel is too small, it forces the hamster to arch its back unnaturally, which can lead to back problems over time. So always make sure to get a wheel with a diameter of at least 30 centimeters.
Great advice. It seems like the general rule of thumb here is to think bigger when it comes to hamster care.
Exactly. Being a responsible hamster owner means understanding their needs and creating an environment where they can thrive.
Well said. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the fascinating world of hamsters. From their remarkable adaptations in the wild to their invaluable contributions to scientific research. These little creatures have proven time and time again that they're more than just cute furry faces.
I completely agree. They're a reminder that there's always something new to discover in the natural world.
Absolutely. And who knows what other incredible secrets they hold. Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration. Until next time, keep those curious minds engaged. And remember, there's a whole universe of fascinating creatures out there waiting to be discovered.